Hey, what's going on YouTube? Thanks for stopping by another Whiskey and Whitetails YouTube video exclusive. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. If you're not, we appreciate your continued support. If you haven't already, please go give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and don't forget to check out whiskeyandwhitetails.com for hunting articles, whiskey reviews, as well as our awesome shop that contains tons of barrel wood handcrafted products for your kitchen, your bar, including our best-selling smoked cocktail kit, as well as our game calls like our turkey call and our grunt tube. Now let's get into this video. So as you already know by the title, we're talking about early season whitetail strategies today. One thing that you can be sure of is that trying to count the opinions of early season whitetail strategies is like trying to count the stars in the sky or the number of wives that Nicolas Cage has had. It's tough. So I decided to narrow it down to one simple area of focus for early season that I think is the most important. Now this is from our experience and where we hunt. This is what we feel and I've deduced after reading and just from experience, what is the most important thing? Doesn't matter what kind of method of take you're using, whether it's a bow or a rifle, doesn't matter what type of scent control you're using, doesn't matter what kind of stand you're using, whether it's a climber, a saddle, a hang-on, doesn't matter. None of that matters with regard to killing a deer if you don't know where the deer are and you don't have a deer in front of you. To understand early season whitetail habits, you need to understand a little bit about their biology and about their behavior this time of the year. Late season whitetail behavior is somewhat predictable, at least more predictable than a Joe Biden press conference, or Matt at a whiskey bar, or myself at a Golden Corral all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet. This time of the year, bucks are still in their summer patterns. They're feeding in the evenings and late at night, and they're staying in bachelor groups. Some believe this is to start the process of establishing their social hierarchy. Others also believe there's some security-related benefits to it to help them with fending off predators in groups since they don't have their hardened antlers yet. At this time of year, bucks are also likely still bedding close to food sources. Hint on what we're going to focus on. Sometimes even within 100 yards of those food sources. Also during this time, they will start to disperse and establish their home ranges for the rest of the season. So it's an opportune time to take advantage as a hunter of a little bit of the confusion and chaos that's going on in the woods to help identify where those deer are going to be. Having cameras in place around food sources in between known bedding areas and water sources is a great way to see how and where these bucks and other deer disperse as this transition takes place during the season. But don't check your cameras too often because it can have a negative impact on the rest of your hunting season by overpressuring those deer. If you want more information and a more detailed discussion about the deployment of cameras and our opinions on that, check out episode 31 of the Whiskey and Whitetails podcast. So for us, early season strategies come down to focusing on one thing, and that's food. While bucks have broken out of their bachelor groups and have started to establish their home ranges, they are still sticking to a schedule that is largely driven by feeding periods. So here are a few things to really think hard about when you're identifying and trying to determine where you're going to hunt, where you're going to set up stands, and how you might want to adjust as the season progresses. The first thing is clover food plots. This time of the year, a lot of the more lush green plants have started the process of turning brown for the fall. Now this is going to differ depending on where you are in the country. Where we are in South Carolina, we see a lot of green plants and things through later in the fall compared to what you're going to see in other parts of the country. With that being said, plants are starting to lose the amount of water they hold, so they're not offering the benefit of water that they normally do, and they're also not as fibrous, so deer are looking for those sources elsewhere. However, clover food plots do a really good job of staying lush and green later into the fall and can provide a great opportunity, especially if planted in small quarter-acre size plots in and around bedding areas and close to other water sources if possible, to provide a great opportunity to attract deer. Next on the list are hard mass trees and soft mass trees. Hard mass trees, think of dropping acorns or walnuts. Soft mass trees, think of things like apples, persimmons, things like that. These are great options as other food sources start to become less readily available and aren't providing the nutrients that deer need they are naturally going to be drawn to these high protein, high fat. So if you're looking for an area to position a stand based on food sources, identifying these on your property and putting a stand along a travel path or within good shooting range of these food sources is a great idea. Next are agricultural fields. These can be hit or miss early in the season, but soybeans are usually still very productive and are a great food source. In the evening times, if you have large food sources and you take some binoculars to the food edge, there's a good chance you're going to see deer filing into those fields at this time of the year. Standing cornfields can still be productive, but are best utilized by deer this time of the year for bedding areas. However, when Farmer John gets out there and makes his first harvest and that field has been cut, deer will hit that hard for food, but that won't happen until later in the season. Now, filling the freezer with some doe meat is your goal. Setting up a stand on the edge of an ag field is a great opportunity, as there's a very good chance you're going to have an opportunity with deer, especially doe, come into that area to feed. If, however, you're looking to utilize an ag field to help target a specific buck, I would look where those potential bedding areas are and set up a stand probably 50 yards from the ag field, as that's where bucks are going to be starting to stage and move towards the field at low light. The last nutrient source is water. Deer need water just like we do, and they look to drink, especially before and after they eat. So if you can identify a food source that is, or a water source that is close to a food source, you have a great combination and a great place to look at setting up a stand. Putting cameras in those areas, as I mentioned earlier, is a great opportunity to get a feel for how deer are moving in that area and where you could potentially set up. But be careful not to put too much pressure in that area, or you can ruin that area for the season by educating the deer. Which brings me up to a last point to manage your pressure. Be careful with regular cameras and use cell phone or cellular cameras in place of those. We discussed that more on episode 31 of our podcast, but limiting pressure can be a key choice in how you manage where you put your stands and where you choose to hunt by limiting the amount of pressure that you're putting on those deer. Another good idea, especially around ag fields and other areas where ATVs and tractors and vehicle noise is not uncommon to deer, is making sure that you have a solid exit strategy so that you don't bump deer off of these agricultural fields or food sources when you're exiting at night or at last light. Having a friend or a buddy, family member pick you up either in an ATV or even on a tractor can sometimes be beneficial, because deer are used to those noises and they're less likely to at least scare too far off from their normal home range because they're used to those noises. So that can be beneficial. Also, make sure that you're using good scent control and entering and exit in a way that's downwind from the deer. That way they're not getting educated on your scent and potentially ruining other hunts for the season. That's all for our early season whitetail strategy. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you approach the early season differently, give us a comment below. Let us know how you would do things differently or what you think about food sources. At the end of the day, we feel through our experience and research that the location of deer this time of the year specifically is going to be heavily driven by food sources. So it should be a focus of your strategy this time of the year. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a like, and hit that notification bell. That way you can make sure you're getting notified every time we drop a new video all throughout the week. In addition to that, if you can share this with your friends, if they're into whiskey or whitetails, that along with subscribing and liking the video helps us get this content in front of other people and helps us get more content like this to you. Until next time, good luck with whatever you're hunting, whether it's whitetails or whiskey.